In this presentation, we will record an adjusting entry related to a gain on investment within our not-for-profit private college QuickBooks problem within QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Desktop. Here we are in our practice problem for the private college. We currently have our open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view dropdown and the open windows list. We're now going to open our Excel sheet to see what our objective will be. We're on number 8D. If we scroll down to 8D, we see that there's an increase in the fair value of investments. So we have a total increase of that 4,910. The amount related to investment restricted for scholarships. So of that 4,910, 1,040 is restricted for scholarship. Amount related to permanent endowment restriction of the 1,800. So in other words, we have investments. Investments have gone up. Those are going to be assets over here. We got assets on the books. The point of the assets is they're going up in value. As they have gone up in value, we want to record that increase in the value as we will do so here. However, some of those are going to be restricted. The increase in value will then be restricted. Therefore, the journal entry will look something like this for the unrestricted portion. So we're going to say that the investments are going to be increasing. The assets are going to be increasing because the amount of the value of the assets went up. The amount that's not restricted is the 2,700. That is going to be calculated as the total 4,910 minus the amounts that are restricted. So I'm going to do this with 3 different journal entries. We're going to say that the investment is going to go up by that amount. The credit is then going to be going to the unearned gain on investment without restrictions. So notice what we're doing here. We are putting this basically on the income statement. It's not going into basically the equity section. We're recording the gain even though it has not yet been earned. And we have to break out that unearned gain between the portion that is not restricted. So let's do that first. And then we'll talk about the amounts that are restricted. So we're going to go to the investments up top. So we'll scroll back up top. We're in the investments. We are in R12 where we will say equals. And scroll back down to that 2,070 and enter investments, then going up by that amount. And of course, you can imagine then if we had our basically stocks or something like that went up in value, we would need to be writing our investment then up to whatever the fair value is as of that point in time in accordance with our statement. So we're increasing the value, but we're going to be doing it piece by piece with these 3 journal entries. Then the other side is going to be going to the unearned gain on investments. That's going to be down below. We have the unearned gain on investments without restrictions. So I'm going to say this equals the credit. That's going to be increasing. So it's increasing like an income because this was a gain. So it increases in the credit direction, basically bringing in up what would be like the net income amount. So if we're going to record this then into QuickBooks, we'll do this one by one. We're going to go back to QuickBooks. We will do this with a journal entry. So I'm going to go back up top to the company dropdown. We're going to go then to the make journal entry. We're going to make this as of the January 31st. And the transaction then will be the investments. So I'm going to say investments, and tab. And that's going to be for the 2070. So 2070. And then the second account is going to be the unearned gain. Unearned gain. And we don't have that yet. It's a new account. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this. Or let's take it up down here. And I'll pick this up. And see what we can do with that in QuickBooks so it's not too long. So we have unearned gain on investments. And then we want unrestricted. Restricted, and we'll set that up. Now we could set it up as an income account, and you might want to put it on the bottom of the profit and loss report. In other words, if we take a look at where it's going to land on the profit and loss report in Excel, or the profit and loss, or basically income statement type of report, it's going to be the statement of activities, and we're looking at the unearned gain. It's reported up here, kind of grouped up with all the other unearned gains. Now note, because it's an unrealized gain, you could try to put it down at the bottom of the report in basically other activity, which might be the case or something that you might see in a for-profit type of organization. So the choices that you have then are to be putting it up in income, which means it's going to be up top with the other type of income accounts, or you could put it into other income, And if you put it into the other income, it would be down below on the bottom of the profit and loss report. I'm going to keep it up here, the same grouping we have in our Excel sheet in the income account. And we're going to say continue, setting that up. And then the credit is going to be to 2070 on the credit side. And then the class is going to be unrestricted. So I'm going to make this unrestricted and unrestricted. So there we have that, fairly straightforward. We're going to say save and close and yes. And then we'll go to our reports, go into the reports drop down, company, or let's go to actually the accounting and taxes and take a look at the trustee trial balance. Trustee trial balance, changing the dates up top from 01/01/20 to 12/31/20, January through December 2020. Then we're going to go to the customized reports up top, and we're going to say that we want the fonts and numbers. We're then going to go to change the font. We want to make it 11 and okay and yes and okay. So now we're going to say that the investment has increased. That's going to be an asset type of account. Double clicking on the investment, we see the unrealized gain here, and there is our journal entry. We probably should have labeled it as an adjusting entry, but we'll keep that for now. And then at the bottom, we're going to have a revenue account, which is going to be the unearned gain. Double clicking on that. There we have our amount there. Let's go back to Excel then. The second transaction, we're going to be recording the amount that is restricted. So now we're going to say I'm going to green this, right clicking on it. I'm going to make that blue, back to blue. Now we're going to be doing this transaction, the second transaction, which will have a restricted component to it. So it has a restricted component, scrolling back down, and this is going to be the amount related to investment restricted for scholarships. So this was restricted for a scholarship. So we have a specific type of restriction. It's been indicated here by the type of account. So it has unearned gain on investment with donor restrictions, and it's labeling it as the scholarship rather than just saying that this is restricted versus unrestricted. We'll do the same method in QuickBooks. Note that now then we have a restriction here. So there's a couple things that we're going to need to do. We're going to have to say that we have the class that's going to be restricted. We're going to put it into the restricted class, and we're going to want to break it out and give more detail. And we typically will do that with the jobs in QuickBooks. Now notice when we go back to QuickBooks, it's a little bit more tricky here, because if I go to the company and financial and go to the make journal entries, we don't have any input screen for the job up top. And therefore we're going to have to use some type of form in order to enter this transaction. So I'm going to close this back out, and we want to use some kind of form so we can basically add the job to it. And typically in this kind of case, oftentimes the check is the best thing to use, not because we're going to be decreasing cash, but we're going to have a zero check, and that zero check will allow us to basically do a journal entry with the added field of the customer job down below. So oftentimes when you do this, you want to make the clearing account. We're going to take this to the clearing account saying, hey, this is a zero check. We're basically just using the check to enter a journal entry. And then we're going to say that we have the check is at 0 down in the expenses side. Then we're going to have the investments. So investments and tab. Now a check would typically be decreasing cash, and therefore that would be a credit to cash. And so this would be a debit. Any positive number here then would be a debit. So we want a positive number here for the debit, which is going to be the 1040. So we're going to say 1040. This should be an adjusting entry. And it's not going to have a customer job here. The class is going to be, we could say restricted or unrestricted here, because this is the balance sheet account. And then the other side of it is going to be going to the unrealized gain, but the unrealized gain is going to be restricted for the scholarship. So we're going to say unrealized gain, bring this back over, but it's going to be restricted, and I'm going to say scholarship. Hopefully, if I spelled that wrong, I apologize, but we're going to set that up, and that's going to be an income type of account. So it's going to be an income type of account. We're going to continue, and income type of account. Now the income accounts are going to be, I'm going to put this as a negative 1040. That's in essence going to be the credit. So how would you know which is positive or negative? It's a zero check. If it was a check, it would be decreasing cash, which would be a credit. Therefore, the positive amount would be a debit. Anything negative down here would be a credit. This is going to be an adjusting entry, ADJ entry. And this is where we're going to put the customer account. And then now I'm actually going to add a new job so we can track this separately. I'm going to go up top. I'm going to go to the customers up top. We're going to go to the customer center. And within the customer center, notice we labeled jobs, and then we're going to have another job in here. So I'm going to, under the jobs item, I'm going to go to the, so we want this one selected. We're going to go to the new and then add job. And I'm just going to call this scholarship. And I'm going to call it scholarship. I'm going to say the job information. We're going to keep the job status as in progress and okay. So there we have that, and then I'm going to move this up top. I'm going to grab the diamond and put that up top, so it's the first thing we see in our job reports. Closing this back out then, I'm going to say that the job is going to be scholarships, and there we have that, and this one is going to be restricted. So restricted. So there we have it. Let's take a look at this. What's going to happen? Investments are going to go up. The unearned gain is going to go up. Then it's also going to be going to the restricted column of the profit and loss by class, and it'll be also supported in more detail with the profit and loss by job under the scholarship column. So I'm going to say save and close, and yes. And if we go to the trial balance, then we're going to say that the investment, once again, is going to be increasing. Here's the investment, double-clicking on it. There's the increase to the investment. Closing this back out. The other side is going to go to the unrealized gain. So we have the unrealized gain down below. And that's, if I double click on that, that's going to give us the amount for the adjusted, for the restricted of the 1,040. Closing this back out, let's take a look at the profit and loss by class reports up top. We're going to go to the company and financial, take a look at that profit and loss by class report. Change the dates up top from 01/01/20 to 12/31/20. Going to change the size by going to the customize fonts and numbers. Change that size to 11. Okay, yes, and okay. So there we have that. And then if we scroll down to the unearned gains, here we have the two amounts. This amount we just put in was for the restricted amount. Last journal entry was the unrestricted amount. If we want more detail on the restricted amounts, we need the profit and loss by job. Reports drop down, company and financial, profit and loss by job. Changing the dates up top from 01/01/20 to 12/31/20. Then changing the size, customize reports, fonts and numbers. Change the font size to 11. Okay, yes, and okay. Then we have the scholarship. That's where we put this one. So there's the scholarship. If I was to minimize these, then we're going to see that same bottom line, 3,579. Go back to the profit and loss by class. Scrolling back down to the restricted, there's that 3,579 in the profit and loss by class. The profit and loss by job, then breaking that amount by more detail if we have the plus button to these restricted items. Back to Excel. So if we go back to Excel, I'm gonna ungreen this one. I'm gonna select that and ungreen this. We'll do this once again, basically another round of this. And actually, I never recorded it on this side, so let's undo that ungreen. Let's record this. We've got the investment. So if I record this up top, here's the investment. I scroll back up top. Here's the investment. Something is in it. I'm gonna double click on it, go to the end of it, say plus. And then I'm going to go to that debit of the 1,040, increasing the investment amount. Then we got the unearned gain on investments. So the unearned gain for the scholarship is going to be in R33, and that's going to be the increase here. Okay, similar transaction we'll have for the last one. I'm going to ungreen this now this time. Now it's right to do that this time. And we'll make this last one green. This is the one we will be working on now. So we have the investment income, same kind of transaction, except a different restriction for the endowment. So we're going to list that down here specifically in our account. So we'll go back up top and we're going to say, all right, we have an investment. Again, this is going to be increasing the investment. And the investment goes up. And the other side So there's the increase to the investment is going to the unearned gain on investment. So there we have that. Similar transaction, similar process that we will use in QuickBooks. Because it's restricted, we're going to use that check technique again. We're going to go to the Home tab. We're going to write another check. Let's do that again. We're going to say we're going to go to the Home tab. We are going to write a check, not go to the register. And we want to make it go into the clearing account. That's the one we want. As of the end of the time period, zeros for the amount. The accounts then down below are going to be investments. So I'm going to say investments. And that's going to be a debit of the 1,800, 1800. And no job here. It could be restricted or unrestricted because it's a balance sheet account. So it's not going to be on the profit and loss by class. And then the other side is going to be the unrealized gain for the endowment. So I'm going to say it's unrealized gain restricted for the endowment. So did I spell that right? So there we have it. That's my best guess here. We're going to say okay and set that up. And I'm going to set that up once again as an income account. So, and we'll continue and save. And this is going to be a negative 1800. And then the customer job here, I'm going to select the drop down. This was for the endowment. So I'm going to pick the endowment. And then I'm going to say that this is going to be restricted tab. So that's going to be basically the investment's going to be increasing. And then the credit's going to be going to the gain, which will be increasing the revenue account as well. Let's say saving. So what's going to happen when we do this? The investment's going to go up. The unrealized gain's going to go up. It's going to be allocated to the restricted on the profit and loss by class. It's going to be allocated to the further detail of the donor endowment when we break out the profit and loss by job. So we're going to say save and close and yes. If we take a look at the trial balance then, we know that we have the investment is going to be increasing. So here's the investment, double clicking on that. We have the increase there, closing this back out. Then we have the unearned gain on investment. This one for that 1,800. There it is here. That's the one, increasing. Then we want to go to the profit and loss by job. Profit and loss. Well, let's go first to the profit and loss by class in the open window. Profit and loss by class, we once again have in restricted this 1,800. If we want to know the more detail of the type of restriction, we broke it out a bit by giving the account name for more detail in this case. But we can also, and notice it really truncated the accounts there, but we could also get the more restriction by, or the more detail by going to the profit and loss by job. And then the profit and loss by job within the endowment, we see that amount for the 1,800 for the unearned gain on investments. Again, if I minimize the job, collapse it, then the jobs we're looking at net out to that 1,779. If I go to the profit and loss by class, scrolling down, the restricted amounts once again, 1,779.